Well, hello there and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley, and if you're new here, welcome to my little corner of the internet, Ash Adventures. Before we get into today's topic, I like to pair my videos with a beverage. And since we're talking everything Thanksgiving, why not a wine? So today I have a sparkling wine. I have a cava from Trader Joe's. This was only $6 in Chevalier, and I've never tried it before, so why not? Look at those bubbles. It's not that bad. This is a brut cava, but it actually has some effervescence to it. I taste a little apple in there. Some light notes. It's not too dry, which is great. It's also 11.5 alcohol by volume, and I think this will be a great wine to either do a champagne toast to, have during dinner, my grilled turkey, and yeah. We all know Thanksgiving, a classic American holiday where we come together with family and friends over food and we talk about how grateful we are and we just spend the day together being happy. But do you know about the first Thanksgiving? It was nothing like how we celebrate it today. And you may need a drink for this one. So the year was 1620. It was around the time when Indigenous people ruled the lands of America. It was their land and they had lived there for 12,000 years. Settlers were coming over to the New World and were settling in places like Virginia and parts of the East Coast. So on the particular lands where the first Thanksgiving took place, it was the Wampanoag Tribe who spoke Algonquin. And that's a very interesting note for me because there's a town in Illinois called Algonquin. And now that I realize it, there's so many small towns actually named or are in the Algonquin language, like Chicago, for instance. So the Wampanoag people inhabited the lands on the East Coast, Rhode Island, Virginia, Massachusetts. And they had a semi-sedentary lifestyle. So they only traveled twice a year, meaning that they were able to cultivate and grow crops. And they had been experts at doing this for a very long time. So settlers were coming over, doing their thing, trying to inhabit land, saying that they lived there. And actually, these group of settlers on this boat called the Mayflower did not land in Virginia due to turbulent weather. So what they ended up doing is they changed course and went further up north to this bay area called Cape Cod, which was in the Massachusetts, Rhode Island area. But wait, there's more. So the original place that they wanted to live on was already inhabited. And the Wampanoag tribe was like, nah, y'all not staying here. So what they ended up doing is they inhabited a piece of land that used to be inhabited by the Wampanoag tribe. But no one lived there due to settlers already coming there and spreading a disease. The disease was called the Great Dying. In my personal opinion, I think it was the flu. But this was going around in a lot of different areas of the Americas. And since the indigenous people had been isolated for so long, of course, the English settlers brought this to the town. And the settlers decided to settle there. Guess what the name was called? Plymouth Rock. So you might be thinking, how come the native people didn't move these people out, and how come these settlers didn't try to go back to Virginia after the weather cleared or whatever? This is 1620s. boat trips and ships that traveled cross oceans, and specifically across the Atlantic Ocean, that would take about 66 days, 2 months. So imagine someone being at sea for imagine someone being at sea for 66 days. You do not want to get back in those waters. And people were sick, they were starving, they probably ran out of food, so they needed somewhere, some land to just chill. And today, the area of Plymouth Rock is now Princetown, Massachusetts. So in 1621, that following year, after a treacherous and cold winter, it was so bad that 50 people who were on that ship, also called the Mayflower, were sick and passed away. So after the crew recovered and the captain recovered, the Mayflower actually sailed back to England. But there were still settlers there. In March of that year, Squanto, a Wampanoag native, actually was curious about these people and wanted to know more about them. He would watch over them, look at them, and eventually introduced himself to them. And you may be wondering, how did they break the language barrier? Well, I bet they didn't tell you this in school. So, Squanto spoke English. He was previously enslaved, meaning that he was captured by English settlers, was taken to England, and was shown off and put on display, which happened to a lot of indigenous people of that time. This is actually history that I didn't even know about, but it makes a lot of sense. So when Christopher Columbus discovered the new land and found that there were people there, of course they're going to bring as much back to Spain, and then later the English caught wind of this new land, so they're going to do the same thing, and they're bringing native people and they're capturing them and they're turning them into slaves. So Squanto was a previously enslaved native who was sent to England. He did time there, and then they brought him back to the Americas where he was liberated and freed. But his superpower was that he was able to break the language barrier with the tribe. So he investigated the settlers and spoke to them, and they were like, hey, we're hungry. We don't know what to do. They didn't give us any, rule book on how this land works. We don't know what y'all eat, but we hungry. So he went back to his tribe and basically told the chief, he was like, hey, I think they might need us. So Squanto went to the high head chief, Chief Massasoit, and said, hey, I think they might need help, and we are the people to help them. So the chief said, okay. So what ended up happening is that the chief created a peace treaty with these settlers. He said, hey, we'll teach you how to grow crops and, do your thing and be able to live here. But you all need to protect us. Since y'all have guns and all these weapons and stuff, we need you to protect us against other tribes. But little did they know that was the wrong move. So they had this treaty and everything was great. And just a little sidebar, history is so important. I can't say this enough. Like, learning history on your own is probably one of the best things that you can do to not only understand your past, but understand how the world works and how we can move forward as a people, and especially as Americans. Let's get back to the story. The first Thanksgiving actually happened in fall of that year. The settlers were just so excited that they had food, and so they had a celebration. But it wasn't like this oh, come over to my house and let's have Thanksgiving. It was actually the settlers were celebrating on their own, but they were already partying and shooting their guns, and the Wampanoag people were kind of confused and they were hearing all this stuff going on. So Chief Massasoit came over with 90 men because he thought a war was about to break out. And when he saw the settlers dancing and having a good time, he was like, oh, it's a party. He ended up bringing 5 deer, fowl and wild game. There were beans, crops from that time, corn. They had cornbread, porridge, cod, as well as bass and other crops that had grown as an offering and as a celebration. They feasted for 3 days. And that is the first Thanksgiving. But wait, there's more. You may be wondering, why do we celebrate Thanksgiving? Well, I forgot the year, but when Abraham Lincoln was president, the Civil War was happening. And the country was torn apart by so many reasons. Do your research, Google. But he made this one initiative. He declared Thanksgiving as a national holiday to bring the country together. And that is how Thanksgiving came to be. Now, it being on the fourth Thursday in November, some other stories, some other presidents who were not satisfied with the day that it originally was, and blah, 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 blah. But it was Abraham Lincoln who was saying, hey, we need to do something about this country because we are not the land of the free and the home of the brave like I want it to be. So let's have this holiday where we all come together and be happy and hunky-dory, and let's create this narrative that this beautiful celebration happened on Plymouth Rock. So that is the story of the first Thanksgiving. Thanks for stopping by my channel. I hope to see you again. And as always, this has been Food and History.